It is said that wise men learn from the mistakes of others, and dumb people cannot learn from their own mistakes. That is the case, unfortunately, with two Republican senators, Senator Tom Tillis of the state of North Carolina and Senator John Cornyn from the state of Texas. Both Republicans, both bozos, both morons. Why? Because they literally have just come out with an article in Newsweek bragging about how they enacted the first gun control legislation in literally decades when they enacted the law supporting Joe Biden in the year of our Lord 2022. You're not going to believe what these morons wrote, and we're going to talk all about it when we get right back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say a nominee for our 2025 Gundy's Award in the category of top voices for the 2A or Second Amendment. Letting you know there is voting going on, it turns out, until December 17th. December 17th, not to the end of the month, December 17th. So if you're going to vote for the Gundys, please vote for Mark Smith, Four Boxes Diner, for the top voices of the 2A. We've been a finalist before, never won one, but this year I feel like we're going to break through. Well, when you make a mistake, it is often better to try to confess, admit you made the mistake, and move on. The worst thing you should do is to double down because you're a moron or arrogant. Unfortunately, we have two Republican senators, and I expect Democrats, by the way, to do dumb stuff all the time because that's their agenda and that's their plan, and they have an agenda. And it's not dumb from their perspective to eviscerate the right to keep and bear arms because that's what they want. So if they eviscerate the right to keep and bear arms, if you're a Democrat, I get it. You're perfectly smart. You're doing your job. But why do we have Republican senators, such as Senator John Cornyn, Republican from Texas, and Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina, literally writing right now why it is a great idea that they helped enact the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act in 2022, giving President Joe Biden the first gun control win at the federal level in literally decades, and allowing the anti-gunners to have that talking point. And why are these two bozos, John Cornyn and Tom Tillis, bragging about funding red flag laws, which is a euphemism, propaganda phrase for circumventing the due process rights that have been in place for decades from where you should deal with, or what you should be deploying if someone is too dangerous to be on the streets by themselves, or if they're danger to themselves, or they're a danger to someone else and you want to stop them, you go through the civil commitment process. No. These people are out there saying, we did a great job enacting the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act in an op-ed this week in Newsweek, saying how awesome are we that we did this, basically saying it's perfectly fine that we eviscerated the due process rights of gun owners, rights that, frankly, exist for decades in civil commitment processes. And just to remind you, the 2022 Bipartisan Safer Communities Act was enacted on the eve of NYSERPA versus Bruin. So here we are in 2022, in the middle of the Joe Biden term. The Supreme Court is literally getting ready to issue the ruling in Bruin, a huge win for the Second Amendment. And these two morons, along with all the Democrats, which I would expect from the Democrats, and some other Republicans, including Susan Collins from Maine, who signed off on this op-ed, but I'm not going to beat Susan Collins up because she's in a very blue state of Maine, and you got to get the most conservative person you can get in a state. And in the context of Maine, we're not going to get a hardcore Ted Cruz type conservative. You're going to get at best Susan Collins, which is better than a Democrat. So I'm not going to beat up Senator Susan Collins for doing what she needs to do to win her seat in Maine. I think she's up for re-election in 2 years. Well, there is no excuse for Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn or North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis, who should be primaried, by the way, in my view, by Laura Lee Trump. That's what should happen. Laura Lee should not take the job as senator in Florida. She should primary Tom Tillis and knock him out and take the Senate seat in North Carolina. But I digress. The point is, here you have, for no reason whatsoever, because no one's even talking about this, you have an op-ed being written right now by Senator Tillis and Cornyn bragging about their enactment of the first gun control legislation in decades. Why on earth would they need to be bothering doing this? Why are they bringing this up? This is a bad thing for both of them that are going into a primary season literally in 12 months or so, and they want to talk about this, tacking to the left, throwing the conservative movement under the bus, throwing the Trump movement under the bus. What are they thinking? Or maybe they're not thinking at all. But let's just see a couple of the points they made in this op-ed in Newsweek about why they're so excited that they enacted the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Now, the title of the op-ed is "The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act is Cause for Optimism." Okay, it was an opinion piece that these three senators wrote, and they basically are boasting about how this is great. This is where they start off with. This is where they start the article with. No parent wants to send their child to school fearful for their safety, and no student ought to have to go to school and be afraid. But sadly, we live in an increasingly challenging and charged environment for young people. As Jonathan Haidt has brought to light in his recent book, The Anxious Generation, more teens are struggling with anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges than ever before. And so, for far too many families, those fears have turned into tragic reality. Spurred by the devastating shooting at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, Congress answered the call for more mental health resources and school safety measures by way of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. We were proud to champion this legislation, which was enacted in June 2022. Come on, guys. You're literally saying that awarding Joe Biden a major gun control win is a good idea? You talk about hardening schools, but you're not endorsing what the Parkland report concluded after a year-long study after the Parkland shooting, that the way to harden schools is, among other things, to limit the points of entry and to make sure that administrators and teachers have the right, if they so choose, to carry guns to protect themselves. Because when police, right, the old saying, which is so true, when seconds count, police are minutes away, as we just saw recently in New York City with the assassination of the CEO, right? That is the heart of Manhattan. You're surrounded with police officers anywhere. And not only did they not stop the shooting, it took them almost a week to even find the guy. But that did no good, of course, for the victim who was killed by the assassin. Now let's move on beyond this. Now, of course, you have two Republicans that are up for primaries. And I hope that someone will primary both John Cornyn and Tom Tillis in North Carolina and in Texas. Because you should not be bragging about how you handed a gun control win in violation of the Second Amendment to the enemies of our Bill of Rights, to Joe Biden. You are on the wrong side of history, my friends. Okay? And yet you're boasting about it. Now, maybe we could have ignored it. Time would have passed. And maybe, although we wouldn't have forgotten it or forgiven it on this channel, you bringing it up and boasting about it is redoubling down. You're making your error worse. You're compounding your error and reminding the Second Amendment community just how terrible you are and why you need to be primaried. And why, people in the community will likely to be talking to others about the importance of primarying these two guys. We don't need more rhinos. We don't need people that are willing to essentially eviscerate and water down our Bill of Rights, to eviscerate and water down our right to keep and bear arms. Keep in mind that Elon Musk had a petition at the end of the election for the White House. 2 points were made in that petition that Elon Musk had people sign. One is that to sign that petition, you have to show that you support the right to free speech. And the second point was you had to show that you supported the right to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment. And somehow these two guys think after all of this, after winning the election, winning the House, winning the Senate, winning the White House, they want to double down on a failed policy from 2022. For what purpose? Only because they must be morons. There's no other explanation for this. To talk about this issue right here and right now and to bring this up. This is not a good fact, Senator Tillis. This is not a good fact for you, John Cornyn. This is very bad for both of you. Okay, and to continue to remind us what you did in 2022 is not going to end well for you. You're going to get primaried and you may very well lose your Senate seats. And you can go out and be a lobbyist or go do whatever you want to do. But you going back to the U.S. Senate has probably decreased. The probability of you going back to the Senate has probably decreased because of nonsense like this. Now, with that said, I want to remind everyone why it is so terrible to embrace red flag laws, right? It has this good sounding notion, but they're totally unnecessary and they're designed for really only one purpose, which is to circumvent existing due process protections and punish gun owners with specialized courts designed just to go after one group of people in America, people that own guns. Again, all 50 states have a process known as the civil commitment process. If someone is found to be, or someone is a violent danger to themselves, or a violent danger to other people, there is a process in place, and that process has been in place literally for decades and decades and decades. This is not a new phenomenon. That process is the civil commitment process. And not only has the process been built up over the decades, it also, as part of that, the due process protections have also been built up over the decades to ensure that anyone who is accused of being a danger to themselves or to others does not lose their fundamental right to freedom, to liberty, to property, to the right to travel, and the right to keep and bear arms willy-nilly without a full-blown, legitimate, valid process where they have the right to lawyers, they have the right to confront witnesses, they have the right to make sure the medical evidence is exchanged, they have the right to experts testifying both for and against them, whatever it is. It's a full-blown process. The purpose of red flag laws is, never forget this, there is no need for red flag laws to deal with people that are dangerous to themselves or dangerous to others. There's already a process in place that's been around for decades. The purpose of red flag laws is one simple purpose. It is to eviscerate and get around and circumvent those due process protections that have been built in to the civil commitment process. It is an excuse designed to get around those due process protections. And is designed for one group of people, because red flag laws that disarm you only impact one population of the United States. One population only. And what is that population? Gun owners. If you do not own a gun, red flag laws don't matter to you. Why? Because the purpose of red flag laws is to disarm you. So if you don't have a gun, you can't be disarmed. It doesn't matter. You see? But if you're too crazy or mentally ill or dangerous to be out on the streets with a gun, odds are you're too dangerous and mentally ill to be out on the streets, period. So if anything, red flag laws actually backfire on the security of a society by saying, well, we took away his guns, that's good enough, but that's never good enough. If someone is too dangerous to themselves or to others, it's probably not good enough to take away their guns. You should take away their freedom and put them away in a mental institution or somewhere else to make sure they get the help they need and they can't hurt themselves and they can't hurt others. But yet here we have John Cornyn and Tom Tillis literally bragging about how they helped Joe Biden enact major gun control legislation in 2022, and both of these guys are coming up for re-election in less than 2 years. Shocking. I will put a link to the Newsweek article that they wrote down below. And again, I'm forgiving Susan Collins here because she's in a blue state of Maine, and as a consequence, and she really stood up to make sure that Justice Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed. So we're going to give Susan Collins a pass entirely under the circumstances. But there's no excuse and no pass given to Senator Cornyn and Senator Tom Tillis on this issue of gun control in the Second Amendment. No excuse. So with that said, folks, let me know if you disagree with what I have to say in this video. Let me know if I've missed any points. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends. Don't forget to follow me on X at 4boxdiner. And if you're going to vote for the gunnies, make sure you vote for 4 Boxes Diner, top voices of the 2A. You can vote until December 17th, so another week or so. And I appreciate your support. And I look forward to talking to you all again very, very soon, I hope, here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.